I'm Isaiah with IJC Writing, a place of fantasy, romance, and sometimes both. So finally, for the people who follow me on Twitter, this is the video that you asked me for. This is the video of the gods, but before we get into all of that, let me explain who I am to those who do not know. I am an indie writer who focuses in paranormal romance or paranormal or fantasy. I have a book out, and it would be very appreciated if you were to go out and buy my book. It's a paranormal romance called Elixir of Feelings. It is in Amazon. I will put the link in the description below. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at IJC Writing. If you want to follow me on Instagram at IJC Writing is the same. And you can also find me at my website, which is my preferred method that you follow me, at IJCWriting.com. There you will find plenty of paranormal romance clips and prompts. You will find some of my works in progress. And I say follow me there because that's where you have the most power to sway my hand. I do have a series that I'm working on called LMP Chronicles, which is where I make a paranormal romance type cop show. I am looking to continue to do that. I will be posting those weekly on Fridays now, just as I'll be posting videos every Thursday, or at least try to post videos every Thursday and episodes every Friday. But if you follow me on my website and you say, hey, I like this, hey, I don't like this, you can pretty much persuade me to pretty much do more on my website than you can on Twitter. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about the gods. I did ask my Twitter followers and they voted, and the vote was that they wanted to know about the gods. And then they said they wanted to know about the god of death. That was pretty much the main one that they wanted to know about. But here's the bonus. I will be going over all of the 4 main gods. I will explain a little bit before, but let's just jump right into it. In the world of Drekenvold, as I stated in my video about the races, which you can find that as my previous video, I'll put a link for that one as well. The creator of Drekenvold created the dragons and the gods to basically rule and keep the world in a balance. The gods created the main races, and the way that they work is they also created what are demigods or titans. I know in a lot of cultures and media that the titans are usually a separate entity, not in Drekenvold. In Drekenvold, a titan is a demigod. Gods are distinguishable by their shining gold eyes. Whenever someone becomes a god, because a mortal can't ascend to a god, their eyes will begin to glow gold. And a demigod, also one can ascend to, will glow silver. There are plenty of demigods or titans that are around, but we're going to focus on the 4 gods because there's usually only 4. Well, there's always only 4. A god of life, a god of death, a god of might, and a god of magic. So let's get started. Alright, so the first god we're going to talk about is the god of magic. This is Elixir. Elixir is a very posh, prim and proper god, much like the stereotypical that you will find of mages, where they believe that they're better than everyone because of their extensive knowledge and that they're just smarty nerds and they can do things that most people can't. That's Elixir in a nutshell. Elixir is one of the originals. He's one of 2 of the gods who never switches. For the entire time that there are gods, spoiler alert, at some point in time the gods go away, Elixir is always the god of magic, and he does switch with the times. In the beginning times, he's dressed in Egyptian type robes because that's where I wanted him to originate from. But as the times grew and things became more modern, he basically stayed in step with them towards the end, where whenever he makes an appearance, he's shown to wear suits of varying colors and styles. He's very stylish, very elegant in everything that he does. He's a very you have to prove your worth to him type god. If you call upon him or you worship him and you are not applying yourself, he will not grant you his blessings. You're not worth his time at that point. But if you are a good student in magic, or you're trying really hard and you've made a name for yourself, he's more likely to help you or grant you blessings or give you artifacts or things of that nature. The more you prove yourself to be a force to be reckoned with, the more he's willing to put a stamp of approval on you. And that's Elixir in a nutshell. Thenison is the other of the 2 gods who never changes. She is the god of life. She's commonly referred to as the Holy Mother, and She is everything that you would think of in a god of light and life, with the extra bonus factor that in Drakenvold there's no religion that basically restricts what a person can do. So how we have in our modern society, the Abrahamic faiths and things of that nature, where they have to be they have to be more conservative and things of that nature. Dennison doesn't believe in that, and in one of my books, I won't say which because I want you to read them. Whenever I do publish them, she is seen in a bar just hanging out, and the main character is basically like, wait, so she can just do that? She's like, yeah, who says she couldn't? So while she does believe in upholding life, she believes in celebrating life as well. Of course, she does have her rules and restrictions where she doesn't want her followers to just basically get out of control with it. But she's basically, the defender and celebrator of life. Now, next, we're going to get into one of the gods who does not survive the entire storyline where the gods are around. And this is Crotesus. Crotesus is the god of power. Crotesus basically is kind of like Omalixis, but instead of magic, he believes in raw strength and power. He'd rather be on the battlefield than he'd rather be ruling from his throne. And he, in earlier times, was constantly on the battlefield with his fighters and granting them powers and things of that nature. And he was a pretty fair, the strong lead the weak, but the strong should also teach the weak to be stronger as well. So that's kind of Crotesus in a nutshell. And his story is kind of unfortunate because, as I was saying before, with the War of the Fallen, there was upheaval in Lyonesse, which is where the gods reside, and this upheaval was caused by the vampires deciding that they no longer wanted to be seen as evil or gross or ugly or bad because they were the guardians of night. They were the ones that were feared, while they were pretty much the exact same as the angels, but they were treated a lot differently. The angels were seen as heroic and protectors, where the vampires were, punishers and executors. They didn't like that, so they felt like they were the superior of the two, and they decided that they were going to take over. Now, in that process, there was a young I won't say young. He was pretty much the leader of all of them. There was another vampire who was a warrior named Julius. And Julius made it very clear that he stood with the gods and he would never go against them. So what ended up happening was the leader of the rebellion of the vampires, won't say any names yet because I'm going to write it later. Again, I want you to read these. He decided to mind control Julius. And by using mind control, he got Julius, slip of the tongue. He got Julius to fight with the gods. And Julius was such a force to be reckoned with that he actually mortally wounded Crotesus. And when this happened, Crotesus willing to, bless him with his power, he then, transferred his power over to him before he died, making Julius the next god of might. The reason for this was because, he'd rather die in battle than have to go being weak. Sure, he could have been healed, but at this point, his reputation was just destroyed. So, being a man of his principles, and if there was someone stronger than him to lead than he would, Julius did get to become the very next god of power. I won't go into much detail about how and why, because again, that's a story for another time. Now we get on to what everyone on Twitter has been waiting for, the god of death. Now, the god of death, Omanzi, is just about a stereotypical god of death that you can get. Evil, corrupt, wants absolute power, and he praises those who do things in his name to grant him more powers and territories and things of that nature. He likes to see his followers as the best, and those who deal in death for him are highly rewarded with power and things of that nature, mostly necromancers, things of that nature. Well, the story with him is that he had a pretty good monopoly on death magic and anything dealing with death, until there was a young boy by the name of Raziel. Now, Raziel is a human, and if you read Elixir of Feelings, you will get a general understanding of who he becomes, as he is, spotted there. But basically, Raziel was extremely gifted in necromancy. The only problem was his father was a wizard, and he did not want his son to practice necromancy, as it had been outlawed for its ill practices. So Raziel's father takes him to Denison and makes a deal with him. She granted him powers to use necromancy with life magic instead of death magic, and Raziel loved this because, he would rather respect life than to command it. And when Raziel proved that this was a viable way of becoming a necromancer, it caught on, and he began his own brand of necromancers, which of course took powers away from Omanzi. Now, Omanzi didn't like this. Again, as I said before, he's very power hungry, corrupt, and he wants everyone under his, control. So he sent necromancer after necromancer, death knight after death knight, all of his followers after Raziel, and they were defeated every single time. Until finally, he decided, if he can't get anything done right by sending people, he might as well do it himself. So, ignoring the counsel of the other gods, he declared war on Raziel and his city, which, again, I'll explain the lore of Raziel at another time. Who knows when that may be suggested. So he fought against Raziel. Raziel, knowing that he could not defeat a god on his own, plotted to basically make his victory assured by making himself a lich. And for those of you unfamiliar with the process, becoming a lich in most streams of sources of media requires a big ritual and to bind your soul to some type of artifact or item. He did that, and then allowed himself to go into the spirit realm, which is, just imagine it as the afterlife. Made a pact with the spirits there, because he knew he would be there soon, to follow his lead. So he lured Omanzi in, allowed himself to be killed, pulled all the souls from the spirit realm that he could, came back because of the lich ritual, and defeated Omanzi in battle. In doing so, he took his soul and forcefully made himself the next god of death. And then that process would go on for thousands of years. Well, not thousands of years, I'm sorry, hundreds of years. Hundreds of years later, Raziel knew that eventually Omanzi's soul would begin to eat away at his and regain control of Raziel's body. So what he did before that happened was he trained the next person to take his place, which ends up being Eros. Eros is he's a Talon, as I talked about in my previous video, but not only just a Talon, he is actually the prince of the Talons in one particular house, because they rule by the house system. He, denies his rule and goes to become an assassin for the gods, which there's hints of that on my site and certain prompts. You just have to read them to kind of find it out, or just comment me, message me, and I will send you to those. With him being the top assassin for the gods, he was primed for already to become the next god of death, in which Raziel did train him to be. So when the day finally came that Raziel finally lost control, Eros was able to step up to the plate along with other gods and titans to take out the now corrupted Raziel with Omanzi's soul. Raziel, as a god of death, was a very fair and balanced. He was also, that was one of the other things he always called himself, the god of balance as well. Because unlike Omanzi, he saw the value in life, but he also saw the value in death and not letting things get out of control. So he was always cautious of keeping things in a perfect balance. And Eros just kind of follows that same suit, being trained by Raziel. He was just a lot less subtle about how he went about it, where Raziel would make his people move in such ways to make it seem that everything was the hand of nature. Eros would straight up just have people assassinated if he saw that they were a threat or anything. He was just very direct about it. That's where I'm going to stop because I don't want to spoil anything for later, because there is a series that I'm going to be working on that explains all of this and how the gods end and things of that nature. Now, I do know that in my last video, I accidentally edited out the part about the demons, so I will briefly go over that now. Bonus footage, look at that. So, just as the gods can create humanoids, so can the dragons. They mostly create monsters and beasts, but they wanted to create a race that was the answer to the gods creating the angels and the vampires. And their answer to that was demons. And what they did with them was they created them to feed off of dark energy. Where there was a dark realm, they were able to go in and out of the dark realm with little ease, where everyone else would be corrupted by their energy, but the demons could survive in it. You know, they used that for stealth purposes. They could pop in and out of the dark dimension and be in the other dimension for times without the dark energy, and that gave them an advantage. But of course, the dragons would put a flaw in it just in case they ever needed to keep them under control. And much like the humans going to the Talons, there were some demons that did come to the gods, and because they were not the battle thirsty or assassins that the dragons wanted them to be, so they ended up getting a more peaceful life. Those demons, their curse was that dark energy, but whenever the fallen guardians, the angels, the vampires, decided to help, the demons helped as well. They also had their curse removed and became more of protection under the gods. Their culture that's assigned to them is German or Russian. That goes with their cultures. And as I said in my other video, I didn't want to single anyone out. It was just me picking what I thought would be interesting and to see it in different ways, because I never seen anyone apply real world cultures to fantasy before, to an extent where, you know, to such an extent that I had done it. But yeah, that's all I have for today. So again, if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at IJC Writing, Instagram at IJC Writing, Facebook, I forgot to mention that one in the beginning, but Facebook at Isaiah J. Cummings. And if you want to go to my website, which I really want you to go to my website, it's ijcwriting.com. Please go there, subscribe to this channel too. Subscribe to my website, subscribe to my channel, join my newsletter thing that I haven't had really much chance to use yet, but you know, hopefully, you know, you guys are joined there. Comment on my stories, comment on this video, comment on everything, because without your feedback, I don't know what I'm doing right and I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and I would like to make better content for you guys as well as make better stories. And the only way I can do that is by knowing what you guys like. All right, well, I thank you for your time. I will see you next Thursday. Oh, also, for those of you who are into gaming, I'm looking into a project with someone there where I may be joining someone's gaming channel. Who knows? I will let you know more about that next week. All right, again, Isaiah with IJC Writing, a place of fantasy, romance, and sometimes both. And I will see you next week. All right, bye.